This is the most important chapter, that is CPU scheduling. It is a very basic chapter and very important chapter with respect to your numericals also. In your exam, in your midterm, there will be some numericals uh, for this CPU scheduling. So these are the basic things we are going to discuss here. Basic concepts of scheduling, scheduling criteria, and scheduling algorithms. What are the objective for reading this chapter? Describe various scheduling algorithms. Access CPU scheduling algorithm based on scheduling criteria. Explain the issue related to multiprocessor and multi-core scheduling. What are the different issues while using multiprocessor system? Describe various real-time scheduling algorithms. And then we will discuss some advanced topic also. Now, basic concept. Why you are studying this topic? Maximum CPU utilization obtained with multi-programming. You know that. If you want to utilize your system completely, then multi-programming is the way you can achieve that. Multi-programming means you are switching your task again and again with respect to CPU. If you are having 10 different tasks, you are not running this task in order that first you are going to complete the first one, then you are going to complete the second one. You should be switching the task with respect to time. First, you are running your first task for few milliseconds, then your second task for few milliseconds, then your third task for few milliseconds. In this way, you can achieve multi-programming, multiple tasks running at the same time. We are not talking about the single multiprocessor system. Processor or CPU is only single, but you are achieving multi-programming here. Multi-programming, you can say the multiple tasks running at a common time. CPU I/O burst cycle. Process execution consists of a cycle of CPU execution and I/O wait. During a process life cycle, process lifetime, suppose a process P is this. This is a process. In the complete duration of this process sometimes requires CPU, sometimes it requires some kind of I/O, input output devices, or some interrupt from user. Then again it will require CPU, then again it may require some I/O, and so on. During a lifetime, a process always requires some CPU, some I/Os. That is CPU and I/O burst cycles. When it is using CPU, it is known as CPU burst. When it is using I/O, it is waiting for I/O. That means it is the I/O burst. CPU burst followed by I/O burst. First, always it will be CPU burst, because in the starting it will always require some sort of CPU. Otherwise, you cannot say it will require I/O in the starting. CPU burst distribution is of main concern. How CPU burst you are managing? In the I/O burst, there will be some queue. How many processes are there that are going to use the I/O? That is okay, but we are only bothered about the CPU burst time when it is requiring the CPU. This is a process. This is a single process we are showing here. Load store and add store, read from file. You are reading from file. You are this particular things are happening on the CPU. That is, it is CPU burst. Then wait for I/O. It is waiting for I/O. This is called I/O burst. Then store, increment, index, write to file something you are writing. Then again it is a CPU burst. Then again it is waiting for some kind of I/O. Then load, store, add, store, read from file. Whatever you are doing with some file, it will be CPU burst. When you are waiting for IO, it will be IO burst. Otherwise, it will take the CPU. Histogram of CPU burst times. Large number of short bursts. You will require CPU for so many times, but the duration will be short. A small number of long bursts, you may have only few times CPU requirement, but it will be for long one. If the frequency is high, then burst duration will be low. Now CPU scheduler. CPU scheduler means which is going to schedule a different task. The CPU scheduler selects from among the process in ready queue. So there will be so many process in the ready state, those who are ready for execution, but they only need CPU for executing. They do not want any kind of other resource except than the CPU. So in your ready state, there will be so many processes. Now, which process is going to run next is to be decided by the CPU scheduler. CPU scheduler selects from among the processes in the ready queue and allocates a CPU core to one of them. The ready queue may be ordered in various ways. CPU scheduling decisions may take place when a process switches from running to waiting state, switches from running to ready state, switches from waiting to ready, and terminates. So there will be so many conditions like in your process state diagram where we will be switching the different process from one state to another state. Now, preemptive and non-preemptive scheduling. You should be aware about these two terms, preemptive, non-preemptive. In the easy language, you can say breakable, breakable and non-breakable. Those processes who are starting and they will execute their task completely in one single shot, that is non-breakable, that is non-preemptive. You are not breaking a process in similar in some smaller chunks. If you are breaking some task like some P1 process is there, first you are running some sort of P1, then your CPU is running some other process, then again P1 is coming, then some other process is running, then again some P1 is running. So if your process is breaking like this, then it will be preemptive scheduling. If your process is running at a stretch, in a single stretch, it is non-breakable, that means non-preemptive. So which one will be better? Obviously, if you are using preemptive, it will be better for your system. If you can break your process in similar some smaller chunks, then you can achieve the multi-programming. Otherwise, if your process is running in single stretch, you can't achieve multi-programming. In non-preemptive, if your process P1 is running and there are 2, 3 other processes also, then that process have to wait until P1 is finishing its task. When scheduling takes place only under circumstances 1 and 4, the scheduling scheme is preemptive, otherwise it is non-preemptive. What are 1 and 4? Switches from running to wait state. If your process is running and again it requires some IO device, and it is going to waiting state. That means you are breaking or it is terminating. If you are using 1 and 4, that means you are non-preemptive. Otherwise, it is preemptive. Preemptive means 2 and 3. Switches from running to ready state. Your process is running, it does not require anything, then also it is going to ready state. You are forcibly sending this process to ready state. Switches from waiting to ready. When your process is going from waiting to ready, that means it is waiting for its turn. So it will be preemptive in that case. Under non-preemptive scheduling, once the CPU has been allocated to a process, the process keeps the CPU until it releases it by either by terminating or by switching to the waiting state. Process will never be removed from the running state until there is a requirement from the process to either to complete or it is calling some IO device. Virtually all modern operating systems include Windows, Macintosh, Linux and Unix are preemptive scheduling algorithms, means breakable. Preemptive scheduling and race conditions. Preemptive scheduling can result in race conditions when data are shared among several processes. Consider the case of two processes that share data. Suppose P1 and P2 are two processes running simultaneously and they are sharing some data. It is reading and writing from here, and it is also reading and writing from same location. While one process is updating the data, it is preempted so that the second process can run. So it was writing some data and it was now preempted, means it is going to ready state. Now P2 is turned there. Second process that then tries to read the data which are in an inconsistent state. Suppose it was writing something here, but it has not written the complete data here. Before writing complete data, you have shifted this process to ready state. So here all data will be not be completed. Some data is still missing and P2 will want to read that data. So it will be error in that case. We saw this in the bounded buffer example. That means bounded buffer we have not discussed till now. Bounded buffer we will be discussing after the numerical portion because these numericals are important for your lab also. So in the next class we will be discussing the dispatcher and the scheduling criteria. Then we will be starting the first scheduling algorithm in the next class. Okay.